my whole mission for the trip was to get a good size cob on lure. Whether it was in the surf or in the river, like we had a whole trip planned and we just wanted to target a big cob. You know, getting onto the water and seeing Chris being very excited to be on the water because of the conditions, like the current line, the foam forming on the water, all the mullet on the surface, and like he was talking about moon phases and tides and stuff, and it seemed like everything was lining up for something good, you know. And yeah, there was definitely a bit of an expectation in the air, even though, you know, we've all been fishing our whole lives, so it was also still just another day on the water. And yeah, I mean, got onto the zone, and basically I was fishing for that fish the whole afternoon on the river, throwing big plastics and big lures around on the heavy setup. And Chris quite quickly into the session sort of scaled down to the lighter gear and started getting really good results on smaller lures, especially on his little home tight bucktails. And he got a little leery, and then he got 3 grunters in a row, and by the time he caught his 3rd grunt on bucktail jig, I just couldn't watch him catch fish anymore. So like I asked him for one of his, you know, for one of his jigs, and just took my lighter setup that I had with me, tied on one of his little bucktails, and started flicking around. And I was just a couple of minutes into using it, and yeah, it was basically my first proper bite of the session. As I was working the little bucktail over the drop-off, it just got, yeah, it just got absolutely smoked.
You really go. That's a copy. Yeah, that's a copy.
And we obviously, both of us instantly thought it was a cob, myself and Chris, just by the way it ate and, you know, was shaking its head and going on.
That's what I'm saying, like, if it's a cob,
Yeah.
you know. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to say.
I mean, it became pretty clear very quick into the fight that it wasn't a small fish, and we were actually starting to have our doubts whether it was a cob because it was so big and so heavy. Like, I couldn't actually move the fish whatsoever.
It can't be a fish, hey?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it can't be a flatty.
The fish ended up just going into the current and just doing basically exactly what it wanted to do, and we were just going along for the ride. I was never in control of it, in my opinion, you know. So yeah, it was a very, very stressful, very long fight.
All I want is to know what it is, then I'll, you know, plan my fight accordingly.
Look at like a very big fish.
But look what it's doing.
That's what I'm saying to you.
Probably about an hour or so into it, we, you know, both of us were still at that time pretty much on the vibe where it had to be a stingray. It was too big, it was too heavy. And yeah, I just remember when we got the first glimpse of that fish's tail. Yeah, I'll never forget our reactions. It was one of the craziest moments ever.
That's a diamond, eh? That's a tail. No way.
I thought it was the wing of a flatfish. It's so big. What do we do now?
He's fighting.
Okay, but Sam still from the boat.
Then the nerves really set in. Like, then when I knew what I was hooked up to, I knew it was the biggest, by far the biggest cob I've ever hooked. Also just on the ultra light tackle, not at all tackle I would ever want to target a fish like that on. So yeah, it was just nerve-wracking. Every time that fish started shaking its head, I just, can't even explain the feeling. But yeah, I mean, eventually we finally managed to get the fish sort of into shallower water where we could also get off the boat and, you know, try and work the fish onto the banks. But yeah, the thing, it had so much power and so much weight. The size of that massive tail in the current, it was just still totally having its way with me. After about 2 hours or so in total, the fish gave up. It came side on, and we managed to pull it up onto the bank where Chris got his hand around its tail, and then managed to secure the lip grip around its jaw, and
No way, Chris.
yeah. I don't even know what else to say. It's just, till this day, it is still totally unreal that I actually managed to catch that fish on that tackle. I've been fishing for a fish like that since the day I started fishing. Since I've got memories, my dream has been to catch, you know, a cob as long as I am. And yeah, that day it happened on like my lightest setup.
Wat het ons daar, Daggy?
Die droom. Die droom. Ek wens ek kan jou wys, maar ek kan hom glad nie oplig nie.
I think people talk about, you know, fish of a lifetime, and I think that term gets thrown around very loosely and gets used very often nowadays, but to me that definitely was a fish of a lifetime, and you know, I don't think I'll ever be able to replicate a catch like that on tackle like that ever again. Even looking back at the photos, like I still can't believe how big that thing was. When I sat there with it in the water, just looking down at it, and you can just, the size of the scales, the size of the fins, the tail, you can feel the nerves in its body while the thing is in your hands. Like it's such an incredible experience, feeling the energy come back into its body after the long fight, and just watching it swim off, knowing that it's not worse off for the experience. The silver, there's something about the color of a cob, like it just looks like a plain silver fish in any photo or whatever, but like there's just something about that chrome silver, and it's got purples and blues and greens that, you know, depending on what angle you look at it, it's the most incredible animal with that massive eye that you can literally see him watching your every movement. And you know, that I think there's a lot more to them than people realize, and I think if people saw them in that light, they'd also be much more keen to actually protect them and not just, you know, kill every fish they catch. And hopefully through, you know, just spreading the word and through films like this one, we can educate a few more people just to try and protect what we have, because it really is something worth protecting.